Meeting is being recorded.
Kaya yoxatini takat yuhan. Yewa adati tuchtatan shukwa ayi way Táax'aa so adati jagachtuni. Táax'aa. Aqa awe wujin yuchtagachtula. Aqa tsuye jagachtune adar way noun suffixes. Gwashiat atsu adech adawuzia. Ja, atri shukwa aqa acht wasagu lingit keinach awe adati jagachtune. Yata, Táax'aa, Yisaku, Adatawa Yejitunean, Gwalkektis Anach Aya Yejitune. This Yedi Aya Yidu Sak Kayadis, Yidetkoa, Dis Tlein. Kejin Yagi Yawachi, Yadis. Ya Yagi, Dakun Yagi. Dakun Yagi Yidu Sak, Ya Yagi. Kejin Yagi Yawachi, Yadis. Dis Tlein you sak, ya dis. Ya yatakoa tesh akakedi as yedi. Ayanach yage at shukwa gwal klecha gwal nasjinkat uchit yuchatank. Yatakoa gwal kejinjinkat. Tsukagachta yatakoa. Yenaka gutil you saga at ya gutil. Ya tlak on ku'u has ausaku guti shaya yidu asago a. Gwal hichchi hit yig aya yewutien. Yada chusacha kwan. Yada a. Yada koa chus. Yada awe. Gweil. Tikhisani. Dechigi yawachiyata dat chisani. Tikhisani.
Chisani.
Hetsta. Táax'aa. Yatig. Wutig. Hekwatig. Atsun. Awatsun. Quatsun. Yanagut. Wugut. Gakagut. Yek yanagut. Yek uwagut. Yek kakagut. Yek uwagut. Kesh yek wugut. Akakushi. Akakuwashi. Ausatin. Yeagursatin. Ya anasquain. Ausaku. Agursaku.
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 Ascha.
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 Auscha.
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 Agursacha.
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 Ashachisht.
Ashachist.
Ashachisht.
Asachist.
Ashawachich.
Shawachich.
Ashawachich.
Shawachich.
Ashaqquachich.
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 Yenaskit.
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 Woodzagid.
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 Yikquaskid.
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 Ach ya anastain.
Yach ya anastain.
Ach ya anastain.
Ach yan astain.
Ach ausata.
Ach ausata.
Ach ausata.
Ach ausata.
Ach agursata.
Ach agursata.
Ach agursata.
Ach agursata.
Ya anayan.
Ya anayan.
Ya anayin.
Ya anayin.
Awaya.
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 Ke akquaya.
Ke akquaya.
Ke akquaya.
Ke akquaya.
Sha'a.
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 Ya analkats.
Ya analkutz.
Ya analkats.
Ya analkutz.
Autlakoots.
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 Agurtlakoots.
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 Akatwujachin.
Akatwujichin.
Akatwujachin.
Akatwujichin.
Akadekakoshchin.
Akadeg gogwashin.
Akadekakoshchin.
Akadeg gogwashin.
Awashat.
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 Ke akwashat.
Ke akwashat.
Ke akwashat.
Ke akwashat.
Shoot at the ark.
Shoot at the ark.
Shoot at the ark.
Shoot at the ark.
Shoot out the uck.
Shoot at the ark.
Shoot out the uck.
Shoot at the ark.
Shoot the aguch 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 the ark.
Akadeya anachut.
Akade anachut.
Akadeya anachut.
Akade anachut.
Akat our chut.
Cut our hut.
Akat our chut.
Cut our hut.
Akade akwachut.
Akade aquahut.
Akade akwachut.
Akade aquahut.
Ooh.
Ashuch.
Ooh.
Ashuch.
Aushauch.
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 Ke aguchauch.
Ke aguchauch.
Ke aguchauch.
Ke aguchauch.
Astucht.
Astacht.
Astucht.
Astacht.
Ausatach.
Austach.
Ausatach.
Austach.
Ke aguchsatach.
Ke aguchsatach.
Ke aguchsatach.
Ke aguchsatach.
Ja, dat just ach eet is ach tashachtosh kuyo chewatani. Jachataya ilchish.
Are these slides up on the website?
Za inka kwanika etch. Tlinget yidatwa. Yudakha aya akha wutir. Kach aya wutir kakusti ach. Wat ik isa yucha awuch ischa at antqini. Qusakha kwan qutzati wega. Kleinach ka awatloon. Keshyek hugud. Du kik du iqaquwashi. Keshu ayatsu keshyek hugud. Sheikh ugud aya ya kiki a. Chaya nasqach aya de huncho hasqa ya kunashin. Aya dark ya shaq aya ausatini ka aya. Tlein au saku Kusakhaquan Xati. Ashkhande Yanagut. Ash Shawahich Awe Kusakhaquanch Awe Shawahich Woodzagit. Adach au Sata we Yadak Kagwel 2 day. Ke awaya to hiti Táax'aa yede. We Yadak Koa we Yana tuwu. Awa aku awa atudach ke wugudi. Ashkuds yatik kisani. Atudach ke gudawe dujit wujachin we kusachakon kusi. Ayayich ke uwahan Táax'aa. Chutle ganach yuch ya nas teen awa ashawachich. Shoot at the ark. Shoot at the ark tle akat awa chut. Gwaski tsekech sene we kusachon ketlike. Aya chachla dayan kachtu de shatchi awa alche u. We kusachon ketli awa alche u. Kawa yich yuune awe Táax'aa chusati. Achawe Táax'aa kukas tucht. Ye awe wuti. Ye aya yande shakkotan. Okay. Ja, jeder Tscheigen geht gleich nach. Okay, gonna cheesh. What was different about this one?
You had visual examples while you were speaking, and yeah, that was the main difference, I suppose.
Okay. Visual
There
example.
were a lot more verbs.
A lot more verbs. Anything else?
More verbs, and a few of them have more complicated things going on inside.
Yes. This is the As Yeti version. Congratulations, you're a little baby tree. So the first one is the seed. So the idea is we're going to come out with a whole bunch of stories where we've got the whole story. But just to be blunt, the whole story's too much. It's really wonderful, but now we want to create small version, medium version, large version, full version. That way, by the time and go for it. We listened to the full one, we studied it, you have the audio, you have the printout, we'll do all kinds of analysis with it. But the idea is to have a bite-sized version so that you can start to digest it. And the idea here was to create like a little slideshow so we could do the entire thing in Shingit. Any reflections, thoughts? I'll put this whole slideshow and I'll put the other one up. Well, we're going to translate certain lines. We'll look at certain lines as we go through. So any questions before we go back into it? Okay, so here's our approach. I just want to go through and make sure any questions about any of this stuff. What did we say about this? There was a little bit extra that was added for this. Anybody catch it?
You mentioned something about Kwan.
Yeah, tuk on ku'u.
Good.
Jishkat Kwan. So in Chilkat and Klukwan, they know the name of this Kusakhaquan. Kusakhaquan, I think, is what it is, which translates to a cannibal, which is a wild word because it does mean the people. So Kwan is a really interesting word. I have a colleague who believes it comes from ku'u on. That would make sense to me. But as far as what it means and how it works, is you're saying the ancestral people of a place. So if you talk about Jishkat Kwan, that doesn't mean everybody who lives in Klukwan. That means like the people who are of the clans that are from that area. So if I moved there, like Tlukachadi are from there, so I could be Jishkat Kwan. But living here in Ak Kwan, I'm not Ak Kwan. I'm Shkut Kwan, who's living on Ak Kwan land. So what's interesting about that is it's usually of a place. So when you see a Quan in front of all the map that has all the different places, there's a place with that name. There's a Jishkatini is the Chilkat River. Chilkut is a lake. That's where the name for Chilkut comes from. Qir is cake, and so Henya is the area near the water. Sanya is the southern area, and so there's usually like some kind of place name in Quan. So eating people in little bites isn't really a place, but that's kind of what Qusakh Quan comes from. So the Q is an object pronoun for people. The Sah is the classifier. I would say there's a zero subject marker, a third person. And then Kha is to eat. So the Sakha means to eat, usually a variety of things in little bites. So I don't know how people eat people, but that's apparently how they do it. So. What about Gutish? Why is that up there?
It's the name of the cannibal, right?
That's the name of the cannibal, right? And so it is on this Gods, which was, I think I said Hichihit, but it was in Ishkahit. It's still in Cluck 1 today. They did feed it every spring to put hooligan oil to its lips so that it wouldn't come back. So it's pretty wild to see in person. Any thoughts on this? This word means two things. Everybody know what the two things are?
Club.
That's one of the things. Everybody know the second one? Crabapple tree. That is the word for the crabapple tree. Conch is a crabapple, long time ago. For some reason, when apples came here, we started calling them conch. And then we call the crabapple shingit conchi. It's too late to do anything about it now, I think. But how come that one just didn't get a different name? Same thing happened with that chicken. Chicken took the name of something. Conch. What did it take the name of? Anybody know? There were no chickens here.
Would that be like
The grouse. I can't remember which, but
Hen grouse.
hen grouse?
Now the hen grouse is called Klingit Kogchi. Not trying to offend no chickens. You're delicious. Thank you for all the eggs. But why'd you take the name of that grouse? Anyways, so chutz is a crabapple tree and the club, which I think tells us that a crabapple tree is a good tree to make a club out of. There's
It's
another
harder
one.
wood.
Yeah, right? That's one of the hardest woods around here. Another one is sucks, which is yew. And sucks is also the word for a bow, like a bow and arrow. Wait, this one's pretty straightforward.
Ag.
How about this one? There's something here that we just studied, right?
Yeah, you added the little pinched X, so it's like a multiple string.
Mm-hmm. So tikhisani is
Thread or string, right?
string, just string.
String. Okay.
So what is tik?
Tick is a thread or a thread.
Not thread.
Thread. Okay.
What is tik?
rope.
It's rope. Tik is rope. So tikhisani would be little ropes. String. Cute. Makes sense. So then you have tuss. And what is tuss?
Thread.
Thread. So what is a tussie?
Several thread?
Say it again.
Several thread?
That would be tusk.
Something's
So if it's something's thread, this is interesting, okay? So technically, a tussie could mean a non-human thing's thread. What did we use for thread before there was thread here?
Sinew.
There it is. A tussie is sinew. So tuss on its own is technically sinew, but it's a body part that you probably wouldn't ever hear on its own because you usually just talk about it when it's been removed. So there is one more binding type of thing. So we got the rope, we got the string, we got the thread, we got the sinew, zos. And what is zos?
That'd be cedar bark.
Nope.
Sounds kind of like spruce tree.
Oh, okay. Here's your first hint. I don't think there's a good American English term for what this is. It's hint number 2. They use a term in Canada, which I don't think a whole lot of Americans know. It's my theory.
And it's not rawhide.
Well, it's made from hide. So maybe it's, tell me what rawhide is.
Rawhide, it's like you've taken the hide off of the animal, you've scraped it so it doesn't have meat or fat on it anymore. You've gotten rid of the hair, but then you pretty much just let it dry. You haven't treated it with like any oil or urine or tannin to make it leather and rot resistant.
Okay. So it is not rawhide, but it is made from hide.
Like babiche?
That is it. Do my students in America know what, or in the United States, I should be saying? Do you know what?
What
babiche
is that?
That's
No
what
clue.
see, this is not something we use in the United States. Babiche? Tell us what babiche is. Educate the Washington Kwan Ku'u on what babiche is. That's it.
On the back of the drum, when you make your drum, the finer, we cut the leather really fine, right? So we take the large hide, put it over the wooden frame, stretch it across. I forget the name of this style, but the hide comes around the whole hoop to the very back, and the babiche is thin cut hide in a continuous strip that we use to hold the edges of the leather back on the back of the drum. And that's what your handle is made out of.
Yeah. So what do we call that here, folks? Or what do we call that in the United States?
I would just call it like rawhide thonging.
Or just leather strips.
Drum string.
Oh, lace? Is it?
Okay.
Lacing.
Okay, so one of the things that we're going to do in this class and that other classes have done in the past is we take stories like Táax'aa and we just go around the room and, well, we go around the Zoom and the room and we take turns reading the Tlingit and then reading the English. And so there was a student who was in her probably early 20s who was in here just a little while ago, a few years ago. And the line was something like Hastidza owa hasakawachuk. And so the translation for that in English, because this was translated in the 1970s, was, and they also pecked their thongs. And so when she read it, she said, oh. And I said, well, okay, now we have to talk about the word thong, because in the 1920s, a thong was babiche. That was the same thing. Then in the 1970s, this is like the chicken, right? So what comes and takes the name from that Zos, which we never gave that name to anything. So the flip-flop in the 1970s takes the name. So in the 1970s, you said, hey, I was looking for my thong. You would go grab someone's slipper with the little strap that goes between the toes. This is all related, I think, right? And then it goes, and that's a flip-flop. That's called a sandal now. I don't know. I guess it's just called flip-flops. And then in somewhere 80s, 90s, it became like underwear that goes, up your tuk-tuk. And so that became, in the United States, thong. And so, but what happened is we never came up with a good substitution. So I think people who work in it quite a bit, if you make drums, if you do a lot of artwork or crafting that involves it's a strip of leather you get on a spool, then you would probably call it leather thonging, leather strapping. You might have a term like that for it, but I think you just call it Zos. So now we've gotten all the string things figured out. Okay. What's this one? Do we know what this one is?
Ashes.
The
Ashes.
charcoal.
It's ashes. This is also something that people might need medicine for. That's on your head.
Oh, dandruff.
Dandruff. So it's either ash or dandruff. The one that bites. I think they're all finally going to sleep on here.
So is this like where you add the two A's to make it a noun? Is that what happened?
Yes.
I'm just curious because I was trying to make a noun I was looking at today, I was trying to translate to come up with the word weaver. So I was looking, okay, then there's the verb to weave something out of whatever, out of bark or whatever. But then I was thinking, didn't we just go over something about you add two A's to make it a noun? So I was thinking, but have they done that? Do they call weavers by a certain name now when you're a weaver?
So this is something that does need to be studied more, because sometimes you'll just take the verb and you'll change it so that it doesn't, like, it's ungrammatical. When you look at it, like, there's no way that could be a verb. Like, chitzin with an I, that is they are strong, right? That's a verb. Chatzin with an A is strength. So there's quite a few verbs that do that, right? Kudziti is they exist, it exists. Kusti is life. Yati, it is that way. Ti, being, right? That's why they'll say hashingit ksati, our shingit identity. So there's quite a few of them that they become a noun. The classifier just reverts to some form to say, I can't be a verb. This doesn't make sense. Other ones follow this method, which is the one that does this verb root. And Táax'aa is to bite. And someone needs to do a deep analysis of this, like why. And then you also have ones that have big, long descriptive names. Gun, firewood, da, around, daduk, it pecks around the wood. Gun da da goo goo. That's where the name for woodpecker comes from. So I don't know the whole history and why. Why were these different ways to make nouns out of verbs? But this is that one that does that. And there seems to be a set number of these. And now everything, so maybe these are the second wave of things that came over. The first wave, like when the Shingit come here, like, okay, speak, hoots, yay, chak, hooch, all these one syllable things. Like, okay, we're naming all these things. Then these are like, well, that one bites. Táax'aa, right? I don't know. It's interesting to think about though, but it is one of those things. Some of these things are very hard to come up with a picture for. So, this is a specific verb for rolling a giant rock up a hill. No, I'm just kidding. What is it?
Like hard.
Difficult, hard.
Difficult or hard. So this could mean either one. Like wutik, it's hard, like it's something that is hard, or it's hard as in it's difficult. So hard as in it's solid, right? Yatik, wutik, kekotik. What's the difference between those three?
The modes.
Yeah, so how would we translate yatik?
It is difficult.
Wutik,
Was difficult.
it was difficult. Kekotik,
It will be
It
difficult.
will be difficult.
it will be difficult. So now that we've gotten to the verbs, that's how we're going to look at them. Just so that we'll see them in the story, but then we'll just sort of say, oh yeah, that's that difficult one. Like I recognize it from that exercise we did. This is also the verb root for being frozen. And if you just took this thing, this isn't there. So there's also this set of verbs that kind of go the other way. where we saw ones where we make nouns out of verbs, but we also have ones where we can make verbs out of nouns. So tlein could also mean frozen, right? So it's usually say tlein, it's frozen. So what do you think tlein is as a noun?
Ice.
Ice, right? So then you can have these other theoretical discussions. What came first? Was it the noun or the verb? Did we see ice and be like, that's really solid? And then that's also really difficult to maneuver across. Who knows, right? It's fun to think about. A few others. Yesh. What is yesh as a noun?
Raven.
Raven. And there's a few different verbs you can make out of raven. Anybody know what they might be?
Like deceiving or tricking, you know.
To trick, you could say Táax'aa yesh. They tricked them. Like they put a card up their sleeve, or unfortunately somebody just got scammed here out of like a whole bunch of money because they're one of the houses that got damaged in all that flood, and scammers call them or send them an invoice. It's happened to me. It's so wild. Like someone sent me an invoice for doing something, and pretty soon I just kept getting all these Norton antivirus, $500. Like, nope. But you could say it doesn't matter that you tried to deceive me. You will not win. But I'm not calling for people to try and deceive. It's not a challenge to any of you scammers out there. But if you scam me in Tlingit, I might be a little bit impressed. I'm like, whoa, I spoke Tlingit. For some reason, I gave him $1,000 on PayPal. Okay. You can also have Táax'aa, which means to pretend like you know what you're doing, but you don't know what you're doing. And you can also have Yesha, which is it's a similar thing to this, the one that ravens, and that means an imitation or a counterfeit, which is all really interesting. Technically means to pretend to be raven, and that means to lie. So that raven has really been up to a bunch of stuff. Táax'aa is another one that's a verb root. So it's a seal, or it's to burp. Hoots is another one. It's a brown bear, or it's to dominate somebody. There's a few others. So what's this one doing?
Hunting.
Hunting. So how would we translate atun as a verb?
To hunt.
They are hunting. Atun.
They were hunting.
Yeah, they hunted. They were hunting. Akwatun.
They will hunt.
They will hunt. How about this one? Yanagut.
To like go somewhere, walk somewhere.
Yeah, just on its own like this would be they are walking. Ugut.
They walked.
Ugut.
They will walk.
Yeah, wow. Oh, what about this one? This one's a little bit more of a puzzle. Yiq yanagut.
They went.
They're walking to the shore.
They're going
Oh,
to, yes, they're going to the ocean. It only works for the ocean. It could be the biggest lake in the world, one map. But it can also mean to come down from a mountain. And that's how it's being used in this case. So, yiq uwagut.
They walked to the ocean.
Yeah, they got to the ocean. Yiq kukagut.
They will go down to the ocean.
Yeah, away. Yeah, away. Oh, there you are, huh? Okay, you're Satini.
We have Sakonin,
Oh, yeah, okay.
We're doing the language room upstairs Thursdays 5 to 6.
Oh, yay.
We're flexible with times, so if anybody wants to come over or help set up a time or put a sticky note on the door. Casey Lee, Táax'aa, Danakit Yukhatu Sok, so you guys can reach out to me Casey Moats. You can find me.
I'll come here so that people can see.
Oh, sure.
Kiss it, Anna.
Okay. Casey Lee, Ayach Sai, Donaki, Yukhatu Asok, Sakanin Zi, Hajiwu. We're holding language time up in the language room, just upstairs. That's Egan 2. You remember the room name?
It's the little one right by the cafe.
The verb.
It's if you go over to the cafe, it's this tiny little room in there, but we just got done up there. We wanted to come down and share our food with you and just extend the offer to come and speak language. You can put a sticky note on there if we're not there. My name is Casey Moats. You can phone and reach out. Wouldn't mind arranging that.
You only use that.
Just went up there and
I mean, that's something.
I wanted to repeat while I'm here, one thing that I heard Hune say is you do a lot when you read it and when you speak it.
Are there other ways?
Believe in yourself. Shtuk anadihin. And when we were up there in that room, it felt like some of them, like the most Tlingit I've spoken outside of the classroom in a long time. And it felt like
Do you only
life
describe something?
into a language
Is there like,
that we
are there like
together. So, sheesh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sheesh, Tlein.
Sheesh. Johan, jij hoe graag te zien?
Okay. Well, I encourage you to bring more nooks. I'm just kidding. I encourage you all to create language spaces. So yeah, I think every Thursday, I think they said 4 o'clock. 4:30, they're going to meet. We have a language room upstairs here on the UAS campus. And we're going to be, at least I'm going to be encouraging folks all over the place to create these language times. Just gather, eat, share the language with each other, especially if it's, because we try to cover a lot of stuff here, but then you got to put it to use. And so these are really good ways to put it to use. And if you didn't know, this makes me think of something else. Some of you are on the Discord, and that's one way to stay in touch with each other. And then I just had another thought. Let me see if I can find it. Make sure it's on here. We also, okay, yeah. So if you go to the website where our class materials are stored, so this is clinkitlanguage.com. Just to review, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's on here. So this is, if you go to Learning Tlingit and Intermediate Tlingit, I should change all those to Tlingit, which someday, okay. But if you go down, this has everything that we're using to study. This has the verb database, which you can bookmark, and you can also download it. And if you download it, you can open it using a browser, so you don't need the internet. You can have it with you. So far, I think that only works on computers, so not really on handheld devices, but if people know how to do that kind of stuff, let me know. Here's the text that we use for this class. There's advanced resources here. You should have all of this on all your devices. This is recorded audio of Tlingit. This is the Dowenhauer collection, about 500 different tapes. This is the De Laguna work, who was up in Southeast Alaska in the 1950s. These are Tlingit videos. This is the curriculum folder where I put everything that I use to teach Tlingit and all the things that I find about Tlingit. Then you go down, and this is the link for our class. This is the link for a separate Zoom room that is for studying and conversations. And you folks can use that anytime you want. It's just always open. So if you wanted to sort of coordinate some virtual study sessions and conversation times, you folks should. I really, really think that helps. The people who have done that are the ones who I think have been often the most successful. My big recommendation is don't make it dependent on one person, and don't think that there's only one time. Like, don't think you have to get everybody's time and calendars to align. Like, have several, and just whoever can make it, make it. The Zoom is there, the room is up there, and so make use of these things so that you can be using the language. Sheesh. Okay, thoughts or question about any of that? Okay. I think they made it to the shore. So what about this? What's this saying? We got that one, right?
They didn't go down.
They didn't go to the ocean.
Yeah.
They didn't go down towards the ocean. They didn't come off the mountain in the case of this story. How about this?
It's looking after something, looking for something, searching.
Looking for it, searching for it. So aqaqshi, they are looking for it. Aqaqwashi.
I looked for it.
They looked for it.
looked
Aqaqwashi.
They will look for it.
They
Yeah.
will.
So like doing this exercise, like these are verbs you can learn and use. Some of them you use already. Oh, Kashish for putting the Discord link in the chat. My Discord isn't working on my laptop for some reason, so. What's different about this one? What's going on?
Or the perfective and imperfective are the same.
Yes. And so you could also technically just have it like that.
Right, yeah.
So
It's only perfect. Right.
this is what we call an event verb. For event verbs in Tlingit, there's no moment where it's happening. There's just the before and the after. So what's the difference? So to just sort of continue this thought, so we could say, we know this one. Do we know this one? And do we know this one? This is the same verb root, but the classifier 0SL. Do we know what these other two are? Ayatin,
That'd be like they see this.
they see it.
Yeah.
Or they can see it, right? Ausatin, what changes there? Anybody know?
Get the W in there, which
The W is there.
is like already happened.
Yes, it's the perfective marker. So now we're saying this has already happened.
So they saw it.
It is they saw them, right?
They saw them, yeah.
And then, so grammatically, there's some differences here. There's a S classifier. There's a perfective marker. It's long and low instead of long and high. There's also a meaning difference. Anybody know what the meaning difference is between these two?
Is it a dawned on them? No?
Not quite, but it could mean behold or beheld. I beheld it, right?
Yeah.
Like a notice, they noticed him.
Not quite. So the difference here is this is just generally seeing something, and this is a specific thing.
Like they caught sight of someone.
Yes. So you usually don't, you could say, klingit khatin, I see a person. But once you name them, it's got to switch to satin, because they are a specific.
Is that where you're using the dog example before? Like I see a dog in my yard, but then I see a specific dog. Yeah. That's Alcitine. I know that dog, sort of thing.
So is that S classifier there? What's the S doing there?
In this case, it's saying it's classifying it as a specific thing.
Okay.
And so, and that it commonly does that, right? You'll just like when you say yati, it is that way, or it is. Siti, it's one of those things, right? So that's one thing a classifier does quite regularly. And so you could also have, douche chatin. I see a cat, but somebody put a little missing cat thing on my door. And if I saw it, I might say, we douche chatin. I see that cat. We all know what just happened, right? It communicates a bunch of stuff right away. What about ashtin? Anybody know that one?
Watching.
Watching, right? So now I'm watching that dog because that dog poops in my yard. It makes me angry. I'm watching that cat because I got to. But this could also be, this one works a lot like in English, right? So if I say, hey, could you watch my dog for the weekend? That doesn't mean I expect you to sit there and stare at it, right? It means you take care of it. So this also means they're caring for it. They're watching it. So there's some different places. There's a building right over here. It's called Hin Tletini, the Watchers of the Water, because they protect it. Okay, sheesh. So here we got Ausatin. So this is a case for Tlingit. There are some verbs where that is a perfective verb, but it's not affected by time. I could Chosatin right now, I could Chosatin yesterday. It doesn't change. If I say Yake'ich Satini, you don't think, oh, it was good that you saw me like yesterday? No, you're gonna think right now, right? And that's because Tlingit is not driven by time. It keeps time in mind, but it's not driven by it. And you have Ye'aguch Satin. They will see it, or they will see them. Ask questions if you got them. Go on.
Yeah. It doesn't seem weird. Like even in English, when you say it's good to see somebody, like it's always good to see them. If it's good to see them that one time, it's always good to see them, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I should tell you, there was a friend of mine. We used to do these silly things where we'd say just really mean things just to practice grammar. So we'd say like, it's terrible to see you. But as you know, we got our Hachguamo, we're not friends anymore. So I guess we shouldn't have done that.
That's your supervisor. It's terrible to see. Okay.
We can also say there's a Raven story. He didn't want to be seen because he doesn't like people watching him when he eats. What's this one talking about?
Like knowing something.
So Ausaku would be they know it, and so that one's just they know it, right? So this is an instance where you have a perfective marker, but this verb is pretty much always would translate to present tense in English. Because if you said they knew it, you're kind of implying that they don't know it anymore sometimes, right? Like, oh, I knew that, right? Or maybe. I guess it depends on context. So this one also is an event verb. There's no point, you could say ya anas queen, but they are beginning to know it. They're getting to know it. But then it crosses a magical threshold, ausaku. There's no imperfective for this. This is what we call a progressive. It's in the process of happening. It gets ya, ye, or ke, and it always has na, like yanagut. Right? You'll see these. Now we'll start talking about what that means. The ya and the na. Ausaku, agursaku. Okay.
So would you call this a na event verb?
No, this is a zero event verb. So that's a really good question. So with a progressive, it gets na in the middle of it. Doesn't matter the conjugation type. It just gets overridden by that mode. Because we do have a zero verb, a na verb, ga verb, and a qa verb. And that means you'll have zero, na, ga, or qa in the command and in some other modes. But for the perfective and the progressive, that doesn't affect the prefix, really. It doesn't pop up.
Sheesh.
Yeah, so the na has just some different functions, right? It's not just for that one. Okay. What's this one say? This is a funky one, I think.
Well, I recognize the root.
Eating.
Eating, right? So now you switch it to an S, because if you say acha and awacha and akwacha, they're eating it, they ate it, they will eat it. But the S classifier in this case, again, does some classification here. And what you end up with is they're eating things in little bites, and it's often a variety of different things. So that's why I got little potatoes, eggs, whatever those are, and little fish, and they're eating it with a fork. But that's why a fork is called ach, ut, dus, cha, ut. Yep. So ach with it, dus, cha, people eat in little bites, ut, thing. Thing people use to eat in little bites.
I'm gonna forget that in 10 minutes. I'm gonna forget that in 10 minutes.
Then you remember it after our break. Oh, so then, yeah. Ascha, ausacha, aguchsacha. We got this one?
Yeah. Shawahitch.
Ach. Anything? Notice anything cool about this one?
Suffix changes.
Yes. So Tlingit, the way that Tlingit looks at some things, it always has just different ways to look at repetition. So the two broad sort of categories of repeating things is you do it regularly, you do it all the time. So for example, you could say, I eat oatmeal, right? It just says I eat oatmeal, but it doesn't say how often. But if I say every single morning, oatmeal, every single morning, ain't gonna be no Fruit Loops, ain't gonna be no yogurt, no pancakes, just whoosh. So usually when you have kluk in front of it, or klukyugi, or chakluk, which means all the time, you're gonna get a habitual, which ends with a ch. It's a little bit complicated to put together, but you've heard it. Because if you've heard yeyati, you might have heard yenatich. And yenatich is a na conjugation verb. So you do get the na in there. And the ch means it's always that way. Yenatich tlingit. So David Katzig used to yell, yenatich tlingit. That's how the tlingit is always that way. The human being is always that way. So those are your two big sort of logical categories of repetition. Happens regularly, happens all the time. But then Tlingit says, well, I've got more things to think about because I'm Tlingit. So there are things that it's considered a single action. So clubbing someone on the head is considered a single thing. The reason why it gets this letter T on there, because it's something that might be happening a bunch of times in a single instant. So like a fish, you might have to hit that fish like 3-4 times before you're done. But Tlingit is still considering that a single act. So other things like sweeping is a really good example. So if we go back to the beginning Tlingit workbook and we see that I am sweeping, you're gonna spot that T on there now. It's a bunch of little actions that make up a big action. Kicking, atzecht. Same thing. You might have to kick it a bunch of times, right? Then you got, and so when that happens, the CH switches to an SH. And Tlingit doesn't have a problem making that switch. Because if you were to say ashechicht, that's a little too awkward. So Tlingit's like, just make it a SH. Ashechicht. Okay. We'll fall and then we'll come back. Last one. You don't hear yenas get very often. But it can be said, like, they're beginning to fall. It's beginning to fall. That could work. It's used in a Raven story because he falls for a long time. But, woods, I was thinking about this too. So, like, Wutzagit would be like, oh, they fell down. It's already over. Wutzagit, oh, Luke Skywalker fell down that giant shaft. Look at him go, right? And so there's an instance where you could use Wutzagit. But it's also, again, it's pretty rare. Usually you get Wutzagit because you're saying it after they have fallen. So again, Tlingit has these ideas of motion. You're like, yeah, it happened. But did it happen all the way? Because if it happened all the way, now it's Wutzagit. Then you get Yekoskit. A couple of things here. If you're seeing Ye in the future, that's a signal that it is Q conjugation. We saw another one. What was it? See, there's nothing in front of that, nothing in front of that. That's a 0, that's a 0, that's a 0. That's Q. That is why you say Su Ye Ik Kosatin. That Ye has to be there. Nothing in front of that one. Nothing in front of that one. Nothing in front of that one. So if you have a 0 or na verb in the future, it doesn't need anything. But for ga, you're going to have k. I think just like this one. Ke akwashat. And here's another one, awashat. There's no, you either grabbed it or caught it, or you didn't, right? There's no, it's another one of these event verbs where there's no act where it's happening, right? It's just the before and after. Okay, better take our break. Come back at 1:45. Okay, welcome back. I was wondering in the chat what it means if you are coming from more than a week in the future. What does that mean?
It's the link. The first one I posted is only good for the next week.
Oh, okay.
So if somebody's like reading through the chat, you know, reviewing the class in a month, that link won't work anymore.
I
So
get
the
it.
second link, yeah.
That was like, hey, I'm here from 2 weeks from now. It's very different.
What's that do sakit Lingi enach.
It's like the mildest time traveler ever. I'm from 2 weeks in the future.
Those donuts were really good. We had to make a special trip.
Put your money on the twins, I'm telling you. Okay. All right. Well, so we had a question about just kind of looking at verbs. And so this verb was brought up on the break. So let me just start with this, and I'll tell you folks a little story. So here's your repetitive verb right here. We're going to learn about these different verb modes and how they work. I think the stage we're at now is we start to sort of recognize more and more verbs. Then we start to say, okay, that's like a perfective one, and that's imperfect. You know, we start to figure out maybe what these things are start to become. We're not expected to produce verbs in these modes. We're not expected to identify all the verbs and modes as we see them or hear them. But we should start thinking, okay, those exist. There's something that goes on here. And really, you know, what it comes down to is there's some stuff right here. That's the magic zone right there where the verb changes the most. It will change in the stem, but that's really just going to say, what does the vowel do? Which is important, but I think the most important thing to be able to learn how to interpret and predict, it takes place right there. And we'll start looking at some of this stuff. So if you say that CH on here is signaling it's a repetitive thing. I regularly understand something. So you could say if you're feeling confident. I understand Tlingit. And a lot of you folks you are on your way. You could say this. I'm not going to dispute it. But this is also, so you see here,
We can only see the PowerPoint from Zoom.
How's this?
Oh, shit.
Oh,
better.
Okay. That was extra mysterious. Okay. So, thank you. So here is, so here's what we call it just, I'm just thinking we should just call this repetitive. We don't really need the imperfective on there, I don't think. Just say repetitive. And that's just fine. So this is the mode that says on a regular basis. So here you have I understand. In this case, it says them, but you could also be it. You could say Llingit I understand Llingit, right? Which maybe you're not feeling bold enough to say that yet. It's fine. But here we have for me, I. We have for them. And then we could say Llingit ge do you understand Llingit? That's how we ask someone if they can speak, which is always interesting to me. Like in English, you say, do you speak English? Like that's how you ask someone, right? But in Llingit, you say, Llingit ge can you repeatedly hear the mouth of a human being? It's kind of how the grammar is sort of working. So there was a Llingit guy. He was from Cake. I forget his name now, and I'm sorry. But he worked at Costco, and his job was to look at your receipt and mark it off and let you walk out the door. So he was, watching the door. And someone told me he speaks Tlingit. I was like, no, get out of here, really? I'm gonna talk to him. So I was excited, but also nervous. So then the next time I went to Costco and I saw him, I handed him my receipt. I was just really staring at him while he was looking at the thing. And I said, Tlingit ge and he stopped in the middle of the receipt and looked at me. He goes, and then he finished his thing and they handed me the thing. So he said, a little bit. And then he gave me my receipt. And I was so happy. So there was a question here. So the question was, if you look at, and so this is the verb database, like use it, look them up. And so especially you could spot the root, see if you could find the verb in here. Like as we went through that whole list of verbs and we went into this story. So if you look right here, you see I didn't understand, right? And so there are two ways to say I didn't understand, right? So this one, anybody got any? So here's one. I'll show you the other one, then I can ask you a question. So you can say tesh and then there's another one down here, oops, which would be Táax'aa yakushiske. What would be the difference, do you think, between these? Táax'aa yakushiske. And scrolling way up.
Maybe one of them is like, I didn't hear it properly, but the other one is like, I didn't comprehend it.
Yes. So this one is, I didn't understand those words. Like, I don't understand those words, really is what you're saying. But then the other one would be like, I don't get it. I don't get that concept, right? And there's a difference between those. And, okay, so now I got to tell you about the time I got.
Couldn't it also be like, if someone's talking on Zoom and you can like hear them but not really hear them?
Yeah. So you could say, because you see this one has that CH on it. Hold on, what am I trying to do? So I'm going to close this one, and then we have this one, to be able to hear. So you could say this one too. So you could say, in that case, you'd say, I can't hear it. So that's, yeah, you get a phone call, and they start breaking up on the phone. You're like, I can't hear you. So that's to be able to hear something. So there's able to hear it, there's able to understand it, there's able to comprehend it. So the understanding part for Tlingit comes from like, they're talking to you and you're like, I don't get it. So now let me tell you, let me avoid you getting bawled out. So I grew up, when I was learning Tlingit, which is, I grew up twice. I grew up physically, then I learned Tlingit when I turned 20, then I grew up again mentally into my Tlingit brain. One of my uncles was a pretty tough teacher. He would just bawl me out sometimes. Like I can't teach people the way that I was taught because I think, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe like a little brother or something. So he said something to me and I did not understand him. So, what do you think I said? It's pretty young in my learning years. This is what I said. Techosaku. And he got mad at me. And he said, do you not know? Or do you not understand? And I said, I don't understand. He said, you say Tlechach'aa yakushuske. You don't say Tlechosaku. What if I said, who's your mom? He said, Tlechosaku. I was like, okay. And so I took out my little notebook. He's like, don't you write it down, you'll remember. So it was rough. It was rough learning, but it helped me. But, and then he like got up and walked away. I was like, write it down real quick, And so we had tough love, I think, sometimes when we were learning Tlingit. But so these are just finer points. Like once you start moving from beginning to intermediate to advanced, you do a lot of fine tuning. It's like, yes, you could say that, but that's sort of like, this is like, I don't know that information. That's what that means, kechwasaku, right? So if someone says, are you coming from more than 2 weeks in the future? I'd say kechwasaku. But I could also say, Tlechach'aa yakushuske. I don't know what that means, right? So there were 3 ways. I could have actually said, I don't understand what you're saying to me. Right? So these are really fine points, right? I don't understand those words. But then if I said some words and you're like, I am confused, I don't know. But then if I'm saying like, I don't know that information, okay. Any questions about any of that? I'm not going to yell at you, I promise. Okay. We'll do a little bit more of this, and then we'll switch back to we got to get back to our suffixes, okay? So we're learning these verbs as we go along, right? So we have, let me just make sure we got them all. Anybody get what this one is?
Pick up like a unconscious creature.
Yes, this is to pick up an sleeping or dead thing. Yes, that's why its eyes are X'd out. Good job. What about this one?
This be to carry something
And to carry it how?
on your back.
Yes, to pack
Just
it
going
on.
by the picture.
Yes, to pack it on your back. So we have a verb for that. There's a place near where I was born that everybody calls Dai. That place is called Deya, the pack trail. This is my maybe most questionable illustration. There was somebody last year who was very disappointed in my representation of this concept. What might this mean?
Library or wing?
Nothing to do. It's not the thing. It's like a concept. As a verb. It's a verb. This is a verb.
Define
Is it
You're here?
located?
on a map.
Define it. Okay, what was that?
Lodging?
It's down there.
That's pretty close.
Out of the lake?
You're here?
So I might name a place. Yes, I might name a place. Táax'aa, at the shore of Ak Lake. Tlein. A building is situated there. I don't know how to draw that. I don't know how to draw a build. This specifically, when you say Tlein, a building is situated there.
Maybe like those Bora Bora little, those little visitor places that are actually on the lake. I don't know. But it's not on the shore, it's on the lake. Yeah, I don't know.
It's like it's such a very specific verb. But you might have said this one. Cha'a, I'm standing. Ah, they're standing. I'a, you are standing. Sha'a. So the classifier switches because it's a building. I don't know. If you got a better idea, send it my way. Send me your sketches. Send me your buildings. That should be your homework for like all weekend. Just sketch out. It's located there. I'll give you something a little different though. Okay. Ja, Anashkuts, Aushkuts, Guchlakuts. What's this one talking about?
Breaking the rope.
That's right. Breaking rope-like objects because it's Tlingit and we love categories. So how you say it broke? You're like, what is it? Like a rope? Like a something that breaks generally? Like a stick? So, those are kind of your three main categories, I think. And if you have a heart attack, I'm just saying, or someone does, sorry. So I don't want to talk about this lightly, but you'd say, do take our coots. And when Raven broke the daylight, I might break the daylight on you. So beams of light break like this, hearts, and ropes.
Even minds, you could say, even the Alzheimer's, it breaks slowly like a rope breaks slowly.
Yeah, you could
Doesn't
probably
happen.
And one time I heard someone talk about it. I was Nora Downhauer. She said, "Chuoya achtunditani qut atgenakut." It's like I'm walking around without my thoughts. Heartbreaking too. But here we're just breaking ropes. Sorry, I didn't mean to get so heavy. Okay. I don't know how to draw all these things. So like the idea is to like have I think it's successful though, to like have a whole set of slides we can go through without any English and then do the whole story and then come back and go through it again. So a cut with jachin.
Maybe it landed there.
Yeah, so this is for something living usually to fall.
Oh,
This is a heavy thing fell. And this will all come into play later. So like, and this is fun stuff because as you become like this next generation of intermediate speakers and then advanced speakers, when you read a story like Táax'aa, you're gonna have the inside scoop. Because when they say duchus, du jin wujachin, it fell into his hands. That was really cool. Because that just means he discovered it. Right? He got it. Now he's gonna get that thing. I was shot, shot to catch something or to grab to catch something or to grab it. Do we know? I think we did this one. So that's to build a fire. This was another vague drawing. I don't know why I picked a round thing. It has nothing to do with it being round. I should change the thing someday. I just got too many things to do.
Is this to drag something on? Like he dragged it on the fire.
Drag it onto something. This has nothing to do with blowing it out.
That's blowing it.
It's to blow onto something.
It's in the name of the thing. Táax'aa. It's the bite. Yeah.
Yes. So this is for an insect especially to bite you. I think it would also work for an animal to bite you with its front teeth. But like when a dog bites and you get that back teeth bite, that's like you could probably have. I wonder if you could have. It's a Táax'aa, maybe, because sometimes you pet a dog and it gives you those little love nibbles, just like nibble, 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 nibble.
What about like what about like a vampire? Like when a vampire does that like classic like bite on the jugular.
Okay, first question. When a vampire bites someone, are their teeth hollow and they suck the blood through their hollow teeth, or do they bite a big hole and then suck it and then swallow it?
I think it's the second.
Second?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I think it's the second.
But in the movie, just to argue the case here, when they step away, there's just these two little holes. But they puncture a hole and then maybe they suck it out of the hole? Those two holes? Okay.
Ah,
So that would be awiyik, because that means to bite down on something. This is to like to, it's a single bite.
I have a question about that T. We had some
Yes.
discussion when you were out, and the um, subs didn't really know this. Is this T what we were talking about a minute ago, where it happens a lot in an instance, or is
Yes.
that okay? Because I was under the impression that it was like at that point, so he's biting at that point, but
Yeah.
that's
It's not about the location because that would come
okay.
before the verb. And you could have a T on there. So you could say like achikt ausituk. It's biting on my shoulder, right? Or on my upper arm. So you could have that. You could have a T, but it's a different T. This and so Schengen has this regularly where it's like, okay, we only have so many suffixes, so they're gonna do different things. Like the CH that we saw could be repeatedly, it could be all the time, or it could be marking a noun to say that's the one who does it. So the first question is the suffix on a noun or a verb? Because that's a different category of suffixes. So this one's on a verb. So this one means it's one act, but there might be many little components. So in this case, biting, it could be biting a whole bunch of little times, but that's still considered one bite in the Tlingit mind. So this is the same one that was on clubbing on the head. But
It makes
it's,
you wonder, like it kind of brings to truth the whole cannibal jive, the Táax'aa story, because you're thinking, okay, the mosquito should have always been there. Like, why did they have a first generation word for mosquito, instead of like a second, turning a verb into a noun? And you're thinking, okay, in Tlingit oratory, it wasn't there before the cannibal jive story. So second generation, right?
born out of this. Yeah. Okay, those are all our vocabulary words. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this up, and you have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 Keijin, Jinkat, Jinkaka Keijin, Tlein, Tlein Keijin, Nas Jinkat. You have a 30-sentence story. What I'm going to, and we've gone over this story a whole bunch of times. So what I would like you to do is just really over the weekend, between now and Tuesday, is you have, because remember you've got a translation assignment for your midterm. Don't cheat. Don't watch, don't go look up the answers. But with this one, you can go ahead and take a look around. What I would like you to do is I will put this up through slide 34. So it will not have the answers for you. And I would like you to just go through and just work on translating each of these sentences. Take it, like do your best. Like you can look up all these words and like what you should be, if you have questions, certainly bring them. For this, like for example, this one, you're gonna look up D. That's what you're gonna look up, okay? So you should be able to spot, like, okay, there's a verb. And so what I'd like you to do is go through this. Circle all of the verbs. Circle everything that's a verb. And then I want you to write next to it, and you can do this on a computer, however you're working on. Note the verb root. T, E, ha. I won't give you all the answers. But then just see if you can translate these sentences. And when we come back on Tuesday, we're going to start going through this. I'll give you all the answers. Don't worry. No stress, no worries. Just see what you can figure out on your own. We've gone over it a bunch, so try not to just go look in the Down Howard book and be like, oh yeah, there it is. Look at that. I translated it. No, you didn't. You just read it off a page, which is cool. But this is how we get into the deeper levels of Tlingit. I also want you to note any questions you might have about it, okay? Because if you say, well, why is it this? Why is it that? Because then we'll continue. And Táax'aa is going to teach us an awful lot this semester. The gifts they gave us with these stories is just amazing. And what's really fun is you folks are really going to understand the depths of these gifts. Speaking of gifts, Ah, here's your present today. It's relational suffix rules. So is the noun ending open or closed? Does it end with a vowel? Does it end with a consonant? If it ends with a vowel, you've got this rule. If it ends with a consonant, you got this rule. Then the second question, right? So it's an I. I would just say, start from that. How do you put a relational suffix on a noun? Oh, you throw an I on there. Is that it? No, but that's it, right? So then the second part is it open or closed? Because if it's open, it's YI. It's not just I, it's Y. Step 3, is it rounded? Because if it's rounded, then you got to switch it to a U. So then I'll say, okay, now it switches because it's rounded. Okay. The other thing, the vowel, the tone is always opposite of what's before it. Hitti, neshi, just like that. It's got to go down, up, or up, down. Then you got kind of a funky rule down here. If it's any U vowel and any kind of G, K, or X, it's automatically considered rounded. Just doesn't matter. That's just how Tlingit works. The last one. If it has one of these endings, CH, K, underline K, T, TL, TS, it must switch to the voiced version. That's all of your rules. It seems like a lot, but I think as we start going through it, it becomes clearer. So we said, here's open. We did this one already. So if you have, everybody say, saw.
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 Saw ye.
Saw ye.
There you go. It's the ye, right? It does everything we expect it to do. Here's a closed one. Everybody say keys.
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 Kisi.
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 Okay. What about a rounded ending? Oh. Can we have an open rounded word? Sure can. There's one. So this one, you have gao.
Gow.
Gao.
Gao.
Okay. And a closed rounded ending? Sure. Ga.
Ach.
Gahu.
Gahu.
And this funky rule down here? Oh yeah, anything, any U vowel, that means short, long, high, low, any of them. And any kind of G, K, or X, underline, pinch, underline, don't matter. Tanuch.
Tanuk.
Tanuchu.
Tanuk.
Some of you might have already said, dakanuchu. You have used this. Some of you might have said, yetki. You have used this. Okay? So now the voice, the unvoiced to the voiced ending. This must happen. If you put the vowel suffix on there, it has to switch. Cheech.
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 Kook.
Gook.
Cuckoo.
Cuckoo.
You got multiple rules. You have the O, you have the U vowel and the K. You know that's got to be a rounded end. But then you have the K that switches to the G. Yuk.
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 Keet.
Keet.
Keeti.
Keety.
Kate.
Kate.
Kately.
Kately.
Hoots.
Hoots.
Hoodsy.
Hoodsie.
So now you get a couple of exceptions. If a noun ends with a short high vowel, it's going to get pushed long and low. If you have, that's number one. Okay, you just have to remember that. Rule number two, if you have any of those things that we were talking about earlier, Táax'aa, chut'aa, hit'aa, shit'aa, qoina, any of those things with like the verb root ah, it goes, everything goes short and low. You got shita, ach, shitayi, chasha, ach, chashayi. Don't know why, that's just how it is. But that's all the rules. You got them all. So now what we're going to do is there's one more step. So way back hours and hours and hours ago, we learned the little suffix, the plural suffix, and then we learned isani. So that's this one and this one. You can have two suffixes on a noun. The little or the plural, then the relational. That's why you say ach yadi, my child, ach yetki. So that's pretty cool. Oops. Right. So we're going to take a look at how that works. So if you had yat as a word, and then if you said, oh, but that's mine, it would follow these rules. Ach yadi. But then if you said, well, what if we made it plural? Because then you would expect to have yat, and then you would have ach yetki, right? So this is an example. It's a kinship term. I think it's the only kinship term that gets a relational suffix. But it also, you can't just say it on its own. You can't say weidu yat. It just doesn't work. You say weidu atkatsku for a single child, and weidu atyetki for children. So, little teeny bracelet. My little babies have one. They each got one when they were a baby. Now they've grown out of them. So you could say kisk,
Kisk,
kiske,
kiski,
heat,
kik,
kitke.
kiki.
No one's trying to own any killer whales. All my relatives out there who are Dr. or Danya I. No, I'm not trying to possess you. It might sound cute if I did. This is purely an exercise in sounds. Now, kokusani, already you can't add a suffix to that. So if it already has some sort of suffix on there, you can't add another one. So you just say kokusani. It doesn't need to have any of that. So now, ach, I, du, ha, yi, hastu. We're going to put these into place. We're going to try here's a couple of examples that you've also probably heard. Kusti is life. Comes from a verb, kudziti. The noun form is kusti. The possessed noun form, ha kusti. It follows all the rules. That vowel goes long. You put it's open, so you put y on it, and so it's got to end high. It's got to be ha kusti, on, ha ani. So you've already used this suffix, you just have, especially if you've been here, and you've seen the language getting used more. So now let's put our knowledge to the test. Let's just roughly try and take turns. We only got 12 minutes, so whoever wants to go first, go ahead. And when it's your turn, you're going to tell me the name of this thing. Then I'll show you, we'll put the name of it up so you can look at how it's spelled. Then you're going to tell me how to make it yours by using ach in front of it. Everybody gets to take a turn, so once you've gone, just loosely wait until everybody has pretty much gone. Who wants to go first? Tell me the name.
Tuss.
Huh? Took? No.
Tuss.
Get away.
Us.
And if it's mine,
Achtas. No? Uh-huh.
That's got to get the suffix.
Oh, the suffix.
Táax'aa.
Hussy, right? High low.
Hussy. Okay.
Right? So we're gonna watch these rules. Noah's trying to own anybody, but this is how you'd say like my lady, my girlfriend. It is a term of endearment, but it doesn't mean you own them, just to be clear. What is this?
So what?
Shall what? So look at that word. What kind of rules are gonna come into play? Let's just talk it out. How are we gonna we gotta put what on the end?
Eh.
Put an I, but now something's gotta change, right? That T.
Goes to a low tone.
Well, it'll be low tone, yes. The end of this word has to change because the T has a voiced version. So, like, let's just go back to here for a second. So when we look,
Shawadi?
yes, shawati. And so as we kind of just review this concept, like if you just sort of put your hand at the base of your neck and you make these two sounds, right? We're going to go left to right, but the sound is exactly the same in your mouth. You're just turning on your vocal cords. Ch, j, k, g, g, t, da, k, gl, ts, z. They are the exact same sound, but you turn the vocal cords on. So what Tlingit says, it says we got vocal cords on either side of this, so that means we're just going to leave them on because it's too strange to go shawat. You have to stop yourself. So Tlingit goes, don't stop, keep that flow. Yakanadain, it's just flowing. Shawati. And for that's by a man, kawu. And there's plenty of other endearment terms, so these aren't the only ones. This thing right here. And if it's mine,
Aye.
aye. If you just go in the place name book, you'll see Guch aye. You'll see a whole bunch of these, right? Anybody not gone yet? What's this?
Te.
Te. If it's mine,
Ach, te.
ach te.
Hey.
Te. Yeah, away. Yeah, away. Okay. That's away.
Say it.
Yeah, away.
8.
So now, there's two steps to this one.
Sit. Oh, sit.
Say. Right? Now you're gonna start seeing these suffixes all when you look at nouns too. You're like, wait. You look at clan names, all these uddies, they all follow this rule. They all do.
Kitty. Oh, kitty.
Hitty. Yeah, away. Yeah, away. Oh, weasel test. Yay.
I failed the weasel test.
I know it begins with a T, right? It's like
This is gonna be
that
like
trap line.
it's gonna be the thing at escape room.
Da.
It's just gonna be some kind of weasel thing that you gotta look at and can't get out till you name it.
Name the weasel.
It's not da.
Da.
Like
Nuxia.
yeah, away. You get to get out of the room, but you gotta stay in the Zoom. So there's two ways: Nukshiyan, Shukshiyan. What if it's mine?
Ach, Nukshiani.
Ach, Nukshiyani. Yep. High low, high low, high low.
Yeah.
Get away. Get away. So also as we do more exercises, keep this in your mind. In English, if you're making a guess, right? Like you'd say, that's a mink, right? Do you see how I did that? Mink. Don't do that in Tlingit, because you'd be like, Nukshiani, right? So you just got to power through and make your best guess.
Oh, that is Dana.
Good.
Good.
Yeah, dime
That's the money.
or kut. It comes from the English word bit. And we're going to use gut for our example, G-U-T. If it's mine,
Goodie.
Goody.
goodie or a kudi. Okay. Kut is also a nest. So you'll see chak kudi hit. Yesh kudi hit. You can see these things all over the place now. It's your relational suffix conspiracy theory. What's this? Dasaway.
Una.
Una.
So this has the exception, right? Everything's, it's going to be yi, but the whole thing, you should have high toned u's, so a high tone long u, oo, n, ayi, all low. Who wants to say it?
Ach, unai.
Ach,
Oh yeah.
unaye.
Ach, unai.
These are the exceptions. Any of these una, hita, shita, they all go ayi, all short and low.
Yeah, because tool. Yeah.
It's just the exception. But there's not a whole lot of them, so.
Yeah.
Yai.
Yai. If it's mine,
Achiaye.
ach,
No,
yai,
achiaye.
yai, yeah, what? Just watch it. Just watch that tone. Once we start adding suffixes, we realize how much like tone, factors into the words. Oh, fish test. Little fishy test.
God.
Yao.
Yeah, what? Yow. Mine? It's like a toddler's exercise. It's mine. Mine.
Yawu.
Yawu. Yeah, what? See, once we start going through like 100 different nouns, makes sense.
Oh, rapid.
Rapids. Oh, there's a vocabulary quiz too. Oh my goodness.
E.
Yeah, what? E. E. If it's mine,
E. 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 Ach, E.
it's not round. Ach, e.
Ach,
Yeah,
E.
what? Ach, e. You'll see this in place names as well. So like, we're not trying to own everything. We're just learning the pattern.
New.
New. And if it's mine, that's a rounded end.
Ach,
Ach, nui.
It's a
No.
rounded end. If it ends with a W, it's got to be a U.
ach, no.
Nu, just like Huts Nu, Kunk Nu. You'll see a whole bunch of these in place names, clan houses. Kachanates Nu. Well, I don't think that one has a suffix.
That's new.
Yeah, Huts Nu. Yana 8, I think I heard it. And if it's mine,
Yana 80.
Yana 80. So think of all these different clan names. Dakka Wedi, Nanya Ayi, Shukach Adi, Kluknach Adi, Kix Adi, Ut. The possessed form of Ut is Adi. And we're going to learn why it goes to 80 later. Oh, it's this thing.
Yak.
Yak. And if it's mine, ach, yak. Ach, yak. So this one, KWGU, every time, every single time. Last one.
Sokne.
Tlein.
If it's mine, ach,
Ach, Sokneni.
ach,
No, Sokneni.
there it is. Ach, sakneni. Oh, we gotta do two more. It'll be fast. Cheech. It's mine.
Ach, Gigi.
Get away. Get away. Okay, now we had to end on a weasel test. It was mine.
Aktai.
Ach, dayi. Now,
Hasdu. They're all mine.
supposed to die. It's them all. It's them all.
They're all mine. No, they're all mine.
The Táax'aa, ach ayi. So ach ayi is mine. It's just mine. Just generally saying. Ayi, ach ayi. So now you can spend the whole weekend owning everything. Ach katich ayi, ach nadagu, ach achadischa adi, ach shali, ach. And now it's all, the world is yours now. So I'll put up the Táax'aa. Do your best on, see if you can get it on your own. And if you can't, we're going to do it all together. Circle all the verbs, write down what the verb root is, do your best at translating those 30 lines. We'll start going through them all together. And also your midterm is to translate that other story, which I'll be getting you folks the books. I don't know if I'll be able to do it until I get back. So I'll be back in Akwan Ani on the 14th. So Wishigach Tusteen, Tuesdays Zoom only, for just a reminder. We'll see you folks then. Gulchish Tlein.
Tuye Kwasatin.
Sheesh.
Yeah, cross the T.
Gonna sheesh.
Ah.